Hey folks, Chris Eckhart here, and I just want to get you guys out another video and talk a little bit about that topic of glyphosate again and some of the realizations we've had through our journey of not using glyphosate on our operation, why we're, still open to the option of possibly implementing the use of that chemical on our operation, which I know is going to make some people frustrated. And I understand. Hopefully, if you can follow me through this video, follow me through to the end. We haven't committed to anything yet, but we have had some very thought-provoking discussions. Because of the last video, honestly, I got a lot of real positive responses in there. What I mean by positive is there was people that disagreed with things that we talked about, but they commented back in a positive, contributing way that caused me to think about what we had going on. Of course, we had people on both sides of the fence, and I understand probably 90% of those arguments and stuff that are out there. There were some comments in there like, there's no such thing as, glyphosate residue in the food, and, people commenting on other people's comments, and reading through all of it was really interesting. Just for the whole glyphosate and food residue thing, you can go on it's the FDA's website, and I'm not going to include a link on here, but if you Google FDA glyphosate residue, there's a whole list that you can pull up and drop down menu and click on it. It's highly unreadable. I don't know how to decipher this information, but they've tested a lot of food, and there was, there was some crazy number like 40-50% of a lot of the corn and soy based type foods out there had some type of glyphosate residue in it, and it's right on the main website in there. So there is the potential for glyphosate residue in your food. Like, that's not something that we're going to argue about or debate on here. Those were just example of some of the comments that were made on there where people just hadn't done their own research on this. And so again, I'm coming at this from the the farmer's perspective of why we're either choosing or not choosing to use this chemical in our operation and our experience with it. So through the last 4 to 5 years of not like thoughtfully not using that chemical on our operation, it's created also a lot of headaches on our operation. It's created a lot of inefficiencies on our operation compared to other operations around us that use glyphosate, and that makes it difficult for us to compete. So an example would be we're a lot more reliant on doing tillage to control weeds and prepping our fields for the next crop to be able to grow, where there's a lot more time involved in the tillage. We're going over fields with 30-40 foot implements at 5 to 6 miles an hour versus running a sprayer over the field at 10 to 14 miles an hour that's 100 feet wide. And so you can see there's a lot of efficiencies in there. We're also burning a lot more fuel in order to do that tillage. And I don't know if the concern around glyphosate is any more or less concerning than the plethora of other chemicals that are used on farms, throughout the world. So there's a lot of different chemicals that farmers choose to use to protect their crops and, their investments throughout the year. I think glyphosate's been one of the ones that has got the most attention, and that attention is mostly negative, and it got that attention because not only are farmers using it widespread, but so are homeowners. I don't think that the use of glyphosate goes completely, it's not all good either. So I think that there's definitely some concerns around the use of glyphosate. My personal beliefs are, from my understanding around the chemical, some of the biggest concerns are using the chemical as a desiccant for crops and it getting directly on the food residue. I'm not concerned so much as using the chemical to control annual growth weeds or prepping a field for seeding, those kind of applications. So it's not going directly on the food source that's being harvested. So there does have this ability for it to, get onto the the plant that you're trying to kill and get into the soil. But everything that I've read, everything that I can come up with, and I'm not saying that there couldn't be some shoddy science, but there's been a lot of science out there that talks about the breakdown of the chemical. And so that chemical then breaks down into another chemical called AMPA. I'm not going to try and pronounce the whole name of that chemical, but when it breaks down into that AMPA, that also has, what they've determined a half-life in the soil. And those numbers that they've come up with, it doesn't seem very concerning. I might do another video breaking down some of those numbers and what that looks like for what would be our application rates out there. But if we're going to pick apart this one specific chemical and how it gets implemented in our lives, I would be really curious to see how many of these people that have a real negative outlook on the use of glyphosate in all forms. I'm not saying that how glyphosate is being used, it should be used like how it's being used right now 100% of the time. No, not, being used as a desiccant. I don't think it should be used as a desiccant to then go and harvest a crop that's going to be used for food. I think that those are definitely concerns, but the people that are, voicing these concerns, are they cutting all chemicals out of their life? And if they are doing that, I think that would be a pretty big challenge. So a lot of the numbers, I think, that are out there, if a person is using this chemical in a very sparingly way and they're being very thoughtful about how they're using this chemical, they're not spraying their fields 4 or 5 times a year. I think there's a lot of applications where they're using high rates of glyphosate in order to get the control that they want, and make their farm run simpler. I think that there's definitely some concerns around that too. But in our operation, where we'd be using it, maybe once a year and being able to cut the rates back, I also think that there's some possible merit to re-inoculating the soil with biology, and that actually helping the glyphosate be more effective at lower rates. There's some research that we're checking into that looks like that actually has some merit too. I think that there's a really good chance of this chemical sticking around for a while and being a very effective tool. And again, in terms of relevancy, a very low toxicity chemical compared to a lot of the other tools that are out there to farmers right now. And I think that people that are very much on the let's get rid of glyphosate should take heed to what I'm saying here. That chemical is very, I'm going to say this again, very low toxicity compared to a lot of the other chemicals that we have access to right now. So if you want to be on the side, well, farmers shouldn't be using glyphosate and they shouldn't use all these other chemicals either, we should just be all organic. I'm sorry, but you're just not rooted in reality. You better start, considering what that's going to mean for farmers in needing to re-implement tillage on a mass scale, what that meant, dust bowl wise, what that meant, just food cost input wise. We're still dealing with $6 a bushel wheat right now. And it's just insane. That's one of the reasons that we're looking at implementing this chemical again, is just in the cost of what it costs us to produce a bushel of wheat and the labor involved in that. It's hard to argue with, making one pass over the field in order to get this ready to seed, and how much less time that takes, how much less diesel that takes, how much less wear and tear on equipment. Sprayers are very low maintenance wise for the amount of acres that they cover versus pulling a plow, a cultivator, a disc, those kind of things. I just got done working on a disc today and replacing some parts and stuff on it, and it's expensive, and it takes me 5 to 10 times as long to cover a field as it does with the sprayer. So moving all of that dirt, and I'm not sure that what I'm doing tillage wise is healthier for the soil than going over top of it with glyphosate. So again, I'm trying to be very neutral on this and share this with people. Again, this is my experience out there, so don't shoot the messenger on this. We're trying to figure this out as we go, but in our area, organic doesn't really pencil out. I mean, we would have to truck. I mean, if you're concerned about the environment, our trucking just to get a load of organic wheat from our farm to the nearest organic elevator would be 8 8-9 hour round trip versus hauling wheat to our local elevator that we have here of 45 minutes. So just the logistics around this kind of stuff of growing organic in our area is difficult. Now, if more people did go the organic route, maybe some of those elevators would change and what they're, catering to as far as market goes, but that's difficult. And unfortunately, when it comes to the wheat crop, the way it is right now, wheat is one of those crops. It's a staple, but it's also one of the lowest priced crops out there. So as far as dollar per acre revenue goes, like our gross revenue per acre, it's one of the lowest dollar per acre crops you can grow out there. But it's a staple, and a lot of different areas can grow this, clear across the North America, Canada, all the way around the world. Russia's a huge producer of wheat, and right now apparently the rest of the world doesn't really care what Russia's stance is with Ukraine and warring with Ukraine. They're buying Russian wheat and they're selling it for what I've heard close to $100 a ton less than we can produce it for. And so we have to compete with that on the world market in terms of our exports. So in order for the survivability of our farm, we're looking at growing different crops, but wheat's still kind of one of those staples that grows in our area. And in order to pay the bills, we're going to grow wheat. And so these are all the challenges that we're up against as farmers. I just wanted to share that with you folks out there that are, whichever side of the fence. I know that there's people that were, pro glyphosate, pro no-till, these kind of things, that were kind of upset with my stance on the last video. And this video is, not dedicated to you guys, but I wanted to share that side of the coin, and that I have appreciation for that side too. And that for the last 4 to 5 years, I chose to cut my dependency and use on that chemical out. I didn't want to put it on the evil side of things. And the title is kind of clickbaity. And if you've ever done anything YouTube wise, and that views matter on that, in order for people to see what's going on, I want people to see what's going on. I want people to see and hear what we as farmers are struggling with. And so, sorry if the last title upset you. This title will probably upset you too. But anyways, I want to share that with you folks out there and let you know what we're up against, things that we're thinking about, things that we're struggling with. I'll share another video, kind of showing what some of our seeding conditions were like this year. And I honestly don't think that our seeding conditions, doing things, conventional with tillage, were any better than somebody that's going out there and using glyphosate and prepping their field in a no-till situation. We burned up a lot of moisture trying to prep our fields to get them ready for our winter crops to grow, because we were dependent on taking care of that volunteer crop that was out there, those weeds that were out there, with tillage. And so the reality was for us this year is I wanted to use glyphosate, but because we didn't have an allotment set aside for us, there wasn't any glyphosate to be had in our area. All of the chemical distributors in our area were all waiting for a trainload, apparently, of glyphosate to come in. And they had allotments set aside for farmers that their operation was dependent upon that glyphosate being there, for the guys that have been long-term no-till. So that was just a whole nother thing that came up there that was an issue. So, but I really do, folks, I appreciate all the feedback on that video, and helped us figure out a lot of things, things that we didn't totally understand, things we still don't totally understand, but the discussion around it was really healthy discussion, and I feel like I'm a better farmer for it. So really neat people that we've got to meet through starting this channel, and I trying to get videos out there. This last year has been such a learning curve for us. I just wasn't even sure what to put out, but we're just going to start putting out more videos and sharing our journey and learning as we go. So anyways, folks, thanks for tuning in. Until next time.